Hi, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of A Chat with Anita and Matt. And we are fortunate enough today to have a guest with us, and Matt's going to introduce him.
Well, hey, Anita. Yeah, we have Patrick McFadden with us today. I'm so glad he's here. I haven't met him officially until now, but I read his stuff, and what really resonated with me was this idea not of tactics and trying things kind of haphazardly and seeing what sticks, but having a process. And I really think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs need, is someone with that strategy, with that process. So I hope he can share a lot of that with us today, Patrick, about helping entrepreneurs with this idea of process.
Yeah, and what's funny is I don't think we have a problem with thinking about a lot of things as a process, from hiring to billing to servicing to delivering whatever it is that we deliver. But when it comes to marketing, for some strange reason, this idea of a process tends to just float away. And so I just noticed that a lot of the things and stuff that has to go on with marketing needs to be structured in a way that it's all integrated and working together to build momentum and allow someone who has a need to almost trust you and become aware of you, so eventually they buy.
So I totally agree with you, Patrick. It's when I just took on a new client recently, and this is an existing business that they bought into and now are looking to grow. And one of the things that, you're right, they have processes on how they get their product, how their product is delivered. But when it comes to marketing, it's still all over the place. And one of the challenges I've had with them is getting them to see that by putting processes in place and having systems, it actually makes it so much easier for them, because all you do is put stuff in the beginning, have it flow through, and it comes out at the end. And I was amazed at just how tough it was to get them to see that it's critical to have a process in place to make their marketing successful, because they didn't really get that it's no different than how they, get their inventory and ship it to their clients. It has to reflect back here in the marketing as well. And so it's been tough. Do you find the same thing, that with some of your clients that you have, that they kind of struggle with this idea of a process for marketing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's in some ways foreign to them. What we're trying to do is say, did you know that trying to be ranked on the first page of Google actually requires you to understand your content, understand the SEO, the search engine optimization, understand all these other little components that go into delivering the outcome that they want. And so it's a struggle, because they're like, no, I just want the baby without the labor. But, there's 9 months of going through that process to get to that outcome, right? And there's the first trimester, the second trimester. There's a period where, it's growing and it's changing. And so it's the same way with your marketing. There's all these other components that have to come together to get the outcome. But it's foreign, because, again, they just want the baby without the labor.
Yeah. I love that analogy, because that is essentially what happened here. We ran a campaign and they were so disappointed with the results. I think they literally believed in a 2.5 week period that somehow they were going to make millions of dollars. And I kid you not, like the email I got was just how disappointed they were in the ROI. And I had to tell them, well, first of all, how are you measuring ROI? Because you have your immediate, and then there's mid and long-term ROI, right? You invest in the stock market, unless you're into something shady or something that really is moving fast. Generally, your ROI is over a long period of time. But I think what's happened is, as Matt and I talk about with some of these gurus and some of these online people, where you can make 5 figures in 30 days if you follow my plan. I think so much of that has slowly seeped into people's minds that they don't realize that that's not really how it works. Not if you want to do it legitimately.
Yeah, I mean, typically, when we're working with a client and they say, well, I need results in 30 to 60 days.
Yeah.
so it's only one place that I know to go to make that type of immediate impact, and that's lead conversion. So how many leads have you gotten that you truly aren't converting, and why? And it's funny, I just had a conversation with a company about this, and they were like, we were brought into the table because their lead flow has been slowing down. And I said, well, what's been the result of that? Well, we've been converting a lot more because they're more precious now. I was like, well, tell me a little bit about that. Well, we're spending time actually diving through the details, educating them. And I said, so can I make a quick suggestion? Why don't we do that with every lead? And maybe we'll convert more anyway. And he was like, oh, that is like, maybe we should take the time to educate more. And I was like, if you're doing it because lead flow is slow, why not just do it all the time and see your conversion rate go up even when leads are high? And so, he was like, and it's funny, they took that advice for free because it was part of the discovery meeting. And he was able to actually convert the next month. They went from 18% to 22%.
Wow.
That's the only way I know to make an immediate impact is to work on converting what you're already getting.
Yeah. And the great thing about just even that advice you gave is to really focus on the conversion is by taking the time to really know who these people are, like you said, digging through the details, you learn so much about who's coming, the challenges that they have as they're approaching you for whatever problem that you're solving for them. And then this is what I teach. You reflect it back in your marketing so that you can attract similar people like that. So then your conversion rates continue to go up because you can better identify and understand their challenges. And they just don't see that loop. They just see here, gimme lots of leads. But if they're really poor quality, that's not going to help you on the back end. No. Not at all. So yeah,
I love that too, because that's consistent with, what we talk about on this show is keeping your customers forever. That is, once you have a customer, it's not just about bringing folks in the door, but then the ones you have, tending to them and gathering feedback from them and keeping them. Why not spend your time there? And so what it sounds like an extension of that. Why not spend more time, converting those folks that you already have that have already expressed some interest in you?
Yeah, I think at a certain point in a business, you go from getting customers for your services and products to then making products and services for your customers.
Yay!
It's a slight shift, but you will reach that point where it's more about addressing the needs of what you got than always just on the chase and always hunting. Because a lot of times you can't evolve either and do something innovative because you may not know that, this is going on with this particular subset of customers, and that if you came up with a solution, they would buy it at a premium, and your sales cycle would be dramatically shortened because they already trust you and are aware of you. And so it's just basically going through that process of saying, here, we've made this for you. It solves this problem because you've talked about it. Are you willing to pay for it to be solved? And that's a critical point in growing any business.
Well, what if I said to you, I have a certain skill. I teach people how to build funnels, or I teach people how to, do webinars better, but that's all I teach. So once I teach them that, so my problem, I need to learn more people to teach that because I don't feel like I have the skill set to teach them other things. What would you say to just such a person?
So it's twofold. Either you can find somebody who can solve that problem by strategic partnering, or you just live with you're the one trick pony to solve one particular thing and then you move on. But I always think there's somebody that complements your services or that specializes in something else that you could easily go and say, hey, my clients are talking about this. I think we need to figure out how to partner and solve this problem.
Yeah, that's actually how Matt and I ended up working together, because Matt's kind of got the front end of what we do, and then I have the back end. And while we can both do each, like the whole thing, we have our areas of expertise and preference. And that's Matt and I started working together exactly that way. And worked really well because it is so complementary. I think so many people think when you say partnering that somehow they're going to miss out. They don't see it the other side, that it can actually really grow the business if you find the, like you said, the right person to really complement what you're doing. And then like it can be boundless, right? Because then as that grows, if there's other people who can come in, or just sometimes that synergy is enough to just make it really, you know, grow beyond your expectations.
Well, it's funny. We've been getting more and more prospects, and when we're diving into their business, it's so funny to see that how these Fortune companies are using the smaller companies in some capacity to deliver the end result to a customer. So for example, we have a client that does digital media and security. And it's funny to see how ADT and these big, gigantic security companies will often use them to install around the country. And so what you'll find out is that while the bigger companies are actually getting the business on the front end, they don't want to maintain it. They don't want to install it. They don't want to deal with all the servicing issues. And so they outsource that to a local company, which gives them the global presence to serve. And I'm just fascinated by just all the type of industries that are doing that, where the big Fortune company is saying, yeah, we can get all the awareness, but we don't want to, we'll sell the equipment. We do not want to install and maintain and service the issues. They're using local companies to do that.
Which is awesome for the local businesses, because then they don't have to do the marketing in the same way. They don't have to do all of that. It's, again, that lovely partnership. By coming together, they end up building something that, like you said, really serves people well, because there's somebody on the ground locally in their area to deal with the issues, versus if they didn't have anyone, you have to wait 3 weeks till somebody drives there and then, you know, repairs whatever it is they're repairing. Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Matt and I are all for partnerships. That's
well, I think this is such great advice, because it's rarely taught in this online marketing space. When you think of partners and JVs and affiliates, it's, hey, you sell my course and I'll sell your course, and hey, join my, you know, I'm doing a big launch, get in on it now, and you win you know, cars and electronics and prizes and stuff. So it's not really thought about this idea of, well, what do you sell that my people could learn from you in the way that in the real world, as I call it, like the examples that you're giving, that's real world solution there that online marketers and those we're talking to now could apply in their own businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that you guys touched on was having your preference of the type of work that you want to do. And I always say that comes down to who and what makes the ideal customer for your business, and who can you best serve. And a lot of people don't take that specific mindset and approach to say, wait a minute, can I best serve this type of client? Because that matters, because if they're a certain size, they may want more of your time and you're not willing to give up more of your time. Maybe they want you in the office 3 days a week. And so really understanding who has the type of business and problem that you can serve, and does your type of service best solve that is critical. And when it comes to like just having your preferences of how you want to work and who you want to work with, because ultimately the secret to retention and customer loyalty is choosing your customers, not the other way around. And so,
yay, Patrick, you make my heart sing. Because
I just wrote that all down.
Totally what I teach, except for I even just extended a little further. When I start working with everyone who comes on board, I have them sit down and write, what type of lifestyle do they want? So for me, I want an online presence. I want to work live with people, but I don't want to travel. I have young children, not interested in traveling across the country. But so for me, something like live videos or live courses really solves that problem. That is important for me. So what I do is I take and I ask, what kind of lifestyle you want? Like you said, do they want to be in the office 3 days a week? Do they want to be traveling? Do they want to just have, 5 employees, or do they want 500 employees? Like, do they want to be a manager? Do they want to be the sort of more creative side of their business? Then once you figured out the lifestyle, the business model will grow from that. Then you find the customers that will make that business happen to give you the lifestyle you want. So that is what, before anything, and it always really throws people off guard when they're thinking we're going to get into marketing and all of this. And the first thing I have them do is write out their lifestyle goals so that they can see either that they're well on track with the business they've built and the customers they're acquiring, or if there's like a big gap. And if there's a big gap, they have some serious questions to ask themselves as to what are they willing to give up to close that gap, or even are they willing at all? Because we know we can get them customers, but if they are building a business they're not happy with, then I think that's a far bigger issue than, marketing works. We know that. But if you're not happy with the lifestyle you've created because of the business you've chosen, then it doesn't matter all the work we do in the marketing end, they're still going to be unhappy.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask this, Patrick. I was on your site, Indispensable Marketing. I was watching your stuff. I'm like, boy, this guy's got all the answers here. But I assume you weren't born with all the answers. Somewhere along the line, you came. I mean, was it just like a slow accumulation to get to this point, or was there like some event that you just like, look, I've had it. I'm going to learn how to do this stuff. Like how did Indispensable Marketing and all this come about?
Yeah, for me, I've always been an entrepreneur. So I was the person that sold candy, sold baseball cards. So I've had the first Uber, I would say. I sold rides to school. So I always figured out, and then the thing about me was not only did I sell stuff, but I tried to figure out why the person was buying. And that kind of correlated to why everything's a process, is because also when I had my entrepreneurial ventures, I also was working for an engineering company. And so being able to fully understand how structural, civil, architects, electrical, plumbing, and all these different elements affect one another. If an architect wanted to add a toilet, was there plumbing already going there? Was there a wall that the toilet could actually be built on? And so all these things would affect each other. And it just kept making sense to me that when I looked at the small business world, I said, wait a minute. Everybody has the widget, but nobody's putting the pieces together. Where's the process approach to saying that, you need to be using local PR and SEO and building a website, but if you go to 5 different vendors, you're going to get 5 different opinions. And unfortunately, those opinions are about how to grow their business and their sales, with not how to grow your business. And so I said, there's this missing component to the marketing for the small business owner. And I just said, every Fortune company has a CMO. They have a head of marketing. The business owner doesn't. And if you notice, the CMO most of the time isn't versed in the actual doing of the marketing, where they have to know how to code, do graphics, and da-da-da-da-da. They just know how to coordinate the pieces together to get the business goal of the company. And so I said, okay, there's this point of marketing where the strategy is important. And if you get the strategy right, the tactics will attract and make themselves aware. So I said, I need to start a company that's called like Indispensable, because I want us to be focused on the things you have to do to make marketing effective. And I saw everybody else was selling the widgets. So I said, let me sell the plan. And that's really how it happened. I went out, actually, most people don't know this because I don't talk about it a lot, but I actually went out, and it's called strategic marketing. But I actually went out and talked to 3 or 4 strategic marketers in the market. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a strategic marketing business. And they actually told me not to do it because business owners didn't understand the strategy. They only stood websites and advertising. And I said, well, I've been gifted a little bit with knowing how to explain things in a way that people understand. So I just went at it. Now, it was a long educational process for my type of company. So I spent the first 2 years going to networking events. And eventually I came up with this phrase that was, how you doing, Patrick McFadden? I own a marketing company. We don't do websites. We don't do SEO. We don't do advertising. We don't do branded material. They would say, well, that's marketing. So what do you do? And then I would get a chance to explain what we do. And so I had to use that for the first 2 years. And then people would start introducing me. They would say, hey, here's Patrick. Let me tell you. They don't do websites. They don't do da-da-da. They really look at your business and da-da-da-da. So I had to use that to catch on. And then eventually we got into where today, where we do offer one-off stuff and manage marketing programs. And I do have a team that can execute some of the tactical things, but it's all based off the strategy. And my real reason for opening it up to that was not only did it grow our business, but it was a natural solution because our clients kept saying, I'm great you came in and developed a plan. I'm happy with it. I'm happy that you even brought the resources to the table to execute the plan. But I really would like for your company just to manage the whole thing and keep me out of it. So I was like, okay, well, man, I guess we'll just start a managed marketing services where we'll just manage everything from our point of view. And that grew to the point where now we do a la carte stuff. Because at first I would never do a one-off website or anything. But I figured sometimes you got to give them what they want so you can talk to them about what they need.
So
I love that. What'd you say, Matt?
I said, I don't know. My head was filled with questions all of a sudden. I just make one point, which is, I think that's true for so many entrepreneurs that there's just so much coming at them. Oh, I need to do LinkedIn. I need to do Facebooks. I need to do, funnels. And so they got this driving wind in their face of these products. At the same time, they're trying to think strategic. They're trying to think long-term, but then they got cash issues. I just got to do something quick here. So it'd be so great to have someone that, just has that clear focus, for them to take a lead from.
Well, and so what's fascinating for me is I'm out here meeting companies, small businesses where they're making $50 million, $100 million with no social media presence. So people get it confused. Sometimes you have to say, what is it? Because sometimes it's a waste of time to be on social media for certain businesses, or at least in the capacity that others recommend that they be on social media. So I'm not going to say, because obviously as the days go on and it does impact communication, you do want to be there eventually to stay in business. But in some cases, it's not worth it to be up there as much as people say. And I know people that got an $11 million business and they have no social media presence at all. And so sometimes it's just, what are the things that actually grow the business? Do you just have to have more one-on-one business development meetings? Now, if you say, okay, if I need more one-on-one meetings, how does social media help me get more one-on-one meetings? Then that's a different way of looking at how social creates the activity to get you to your end result. But most people don't think that way. I just put a post out on LinkedIn that said Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn are all gateways to an offline meeting for a lot of service businesses. A lot of the times you're not going to sell anybody over social, but what it will do is get you that phone call. It will get you an in-person meeting. And it was funny because I just met with somebody that wanted to meet, and they said, yeah, what's one of the things I could do to grow my business? And I said, well, just interview your customers. So I went to Instagram because they just followed me on Instagram, and I forwarded them a post that I wrote about the 5 questions you should ask. But I'm using the tools to further people along that journey of trusting me and my company. And I'm using that in different conversations. So I didn't have to write an email. I forward them an Instagram post on 5 things they should be asking their customers. And so that saved me time. So yeah. I look for ways to do it that way.
Yeah. I'm the same as you, Patrick. Like when I first came in, the digital marketers are saying, you got to be on Instagram, you got to be on Facebook, you got to be here, you got to be there. And for a while I don't use Facebook personally. I only got an account once I got into business, and then opened up an ad agency, actually, ironically, a Facebook ad agency. Did that for a couple of years, and then realized, like, I've always had a LinkedIn account since 2008. I had to make that big leap of, all right, I'm going to go against conventional wisdom. And for the time being, I shut everything down on Facebook, and I'm 100% on LinkedIn, and I am happy. Like, I love LinkedIn. It's vastly different from Facebook. You don't get the same, the advertising on LinkedIn is really expensive compared to Facebook because it's per click, right? Learn that lesson the hard way really quickly. $700 in 6 days to get 2 webinar registrations. Whoa, this is not sustainable. So then it forced me to do the same thing. I don't have, like, even though I had a LinkedIn account and I was on there, I needed to figure out a way to organically grow my presence. So what I have done is made the number of connections I have. I've really focused on that as a way to start leveraging the algorithm. Because the more people that I connect with and accept my connections, now I'm seeing people are asking me to connect with them. I'm having more people liking and commenting on my posts. And from that come those offline conversations, like you said. Now, one of the things I was doing initially, so I had a business coach and I followed his messaging for the first maybe 6 weeks, and I wasn't comfortable with it. It was more like, thanks for connecting. Here's what I do. Do you want to talk further about it? And it didn't resonate with me. And Matt and I were talking about this. And what I chose to do, and I'm using this strategy instead, is after they connect with me, I ask them, what's one thing that I could help you with around customer attraction right now? And there it is. They're telling me, I have problems with this. This is what I'm struggling with. And I can break it down into categories. Like, some people are struggling to find their ideal customers. Some people are struggling with a social media presence. Some people struggle with the sales process. They're telling me exactly what their issues are. And I sit down and I respond back to every single one of them personally. Then this becomes the content that I put on LinkedIn because people are already telling me what they're struggling with. And it's been wonderful for building authority, for me getting a much better understanding of what their challenges are so that I can better serve them. But it took and it's hard because, we always talk about the gurus telling you to do this and do that, and you got to be here and you got to be there. I agree with you. For some businesses, you don't. For some businesses, a minimal social media presence is best because of the type of business it is, particularly if it's really heavy referral based, or sometimes if you have really long sales cycles. It makes more sense to put the time and energy into developing those relationships than 100%. It does to spend it on social at such a surface level that it doesn't really end up being those conversations that you really want to have. So I'm so glad you brought this up, because it's tough to go against kind of what you hear everywhere and say, all right, I'm going to do it this way because this is who I want to attract, because this is the type of business I want to have. It's tough. And I really feel for people, because I know the struggle I had when I had to delete everything and then jump over to LinkedIn and try again. It's been hard, but so worth it. So worth it.
Yeah.
It's funny. So you mentioned the Facebook. The only reason I'm bringing this up because I just did an Instagram post on this. What did I say? I talked about basically, you got to understand the evolution of marketing and business. And so I'm very concerned for the people that's starting a Facebook advertising agency or a LinkedIn advertising agency or Instagram, because what they don't know is when you look at the history, things fade and things leave. Like today, Instagram may be a leader. 3 years from now, it could be the next thing, which if you look, it's like if this was 1980 and you started a Yellow Pages advertising agency, you're out of business, right? Because you didn't see the future. You didn't say, oh, let me start an online marketing agency. So then I can always switch with the platforms. And so when people start a very narrow Facebook and if you look, Instagram's almost taken over Facebook from an attention stand. So it's always going to be something next. And so you got to be careful to understand that the social media channels are just that. They're not a business model. And if you said, it's just 2000 and you said, I'm building a MySpace advertising agency, you'll be out of business. And so, but that's why you have to say, you know what, I'm going to chase attention, not the tool. And so whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever's new, if it has the attention, that's where you have to go. And I'm just concerned that everybody's saying, I got an Instagram agency. And I'm like, what happened when Instagram's not here? Think about Vine. Vine just shut down. They didn't even get bought. So if you started a Vine marketing agency, you're out of business today. So simply, you just want to not make the platform your business model. You want to use it as a channel to amplify whatever you're doing. That concerns me a lot when people do that.
I like that you brought up Vine because my kids watch old Vines all the time. The YouTubers that have done extremely well, I mean, these huge influencers, they all started on Vine, or the majority of them did. And when like you said it, Vine I believe Twitter bought them. That was my understanding, and then shut them down. And it was just like, everyone was just shocked. It was like, this decision's made, Vine's closing on this day, that's it. And then you had all of these people who had these massive followings and go, what do we do? So they jumped over to YouTube, which fortunately was very similar in its formatting. And that's how you have these, big names that my kids watch, and they have millions and millions of subscribers. But if you watch all of them, YouTube, again, is their platform, but they're all into merchandising and appearances. That is how they're making their money. They just don't stay on YouTube and make YouTube videos. They go beyond. Well, and I so agree with you. It becomes very worrisome when people jump on what the latest and greatest thing is, because it's going to pass. And that's why what you do, what Matt and I do, we build systems, we build processes, that it doesn't matter what the next great thing is. These are fundamentals that don't change. You just apply them slightly differently. You might have to tweak a little bit here and there depending on what the next wave is, but they stand the test of time.
100%.
I'm so grateful, so grateful that I closed down that Facebook ad agency, because it also wasn't something I enjoyed doing. But this I love. I could talk about it all day long because it's my passion. It really is what I'm passionate about. Matt, are you muted?
No, I was just in my mind, I was thinking about all those folks that I know that have LinkedIn selling, that's their business, like teach people on LinkedIn. And, but you're told, well, you should find a niche. You want to really drill down and say, well, I don't want to teach marketing to everybody, and I don't want to teach everything to everybody. So this will be my one thing. So I'm the Evernote guy, or I'm the LinkedIn guy. So like, how do you balance that, wanting to be like specialize in one thing, yet that fear that this tool might not be around tomorrow?
I mean, that's just part of the game you play. If you're going to play that game, you just got to understand the risk. So if you say, you know what, I'm going to be the LinkedIn expert, just understand one day there's going to be another business platform that's going to come, and you may have to just rebrand yourself, and then you're just in constant rebranding. But that's always the risk when building your business on the back of somebody else's, or leasing the space basically and not owning it, which is why you should always have your website and drive people back there. Because I think that's really the secret is just always have a website. If you have a website and even if you put your content on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, always make sure in some way or shape or form it's on your website so it can still be found and still be seen. That's the only thing that you have against that. But other than that, you're at a disadvantage when you're leasing the space from somebody else, because they double the rent. You can go out of business.
Yeah. I just had that happen. Actually, somebody that I know built a course on a third-party platform, and don't know what happened, but over the weekend, that platform totally shut down and became a closed group. He had just spent months building this course. And that's exactly what he said. I guess I've learned my lesson now, not to put all my eggs in one basket. And so he was ready to launch like the course the following week. And they just closed ranks, shut down, changed their name. I don't know what happened, but it's been a very painful lesson. This happened a few weeks ago. So I so agree that, the website, we kind of feel like it had its heyday way back when, before social media came around. But I'm 100% behind you that the website still is yours. You own it. Yep. That if all of these other platforms disappear, you still own that. You can still promote. You can still have a presence. It's just not as, I guess it's just not as sexy. Like you said, it takes a longer time to get ranked. You don't see the immediate kind of dopamine hits of, 20,000 likes on a post that you put out 2 days ago. I think that that's more it. The social media gives us that, wow, so many people, and they commented and they loved it. It makes you feel great. Whereas your poor old website just kind of, just sitting there hanging around. It doesn't quite have the same draw. And I think that's why it's been forgotten until something big is going to happen. And then people are going to go, oh my God, I should have been paying attention, over here to my website that I've shoved to the back corner of the room because it wasn't giving me what I wanted so immediately. But it is like the foundation. So I do exactly what you said, Patrick, and I'm so glad you mentioned it. All like this little a chat with Anita and Matt goes on the website while it goes on YouTube and LinkedIn. Yep. All my other videos, they always sit on my website and then they go to YouTube and LinkedIn. That is what I do. That website is updated every few days with new content so that when people land there, they have that same opportunity to go through and make their own determination whether they want to work with me or not.
Yep. It's funny. I was watching a Netflix documentary about digital influencers or whatever. And it had a woman up there who had 10 million, or she had a big following on Vine. And the day it shut down, she went into depression. She didn't want to build it on Instagram. She had it there. She didn't want to go anywhere. And then she realized she just had to start over. Yeah. But she was like, all these people who knew who I was, that when I walked in the room, that I had the influence. You made the mistake of not spreading. It's the reason that if you watch some people, I think, for me, the biggest example of this is somebody like Oprah. Oprah she has the attention. But if you notice, she moved the attention from TV to her magazine.
Yes.
To probably an email newsletter. So you have to figure out how to move attention. It's the same reason right now on my Facebook page, I'm saying, hey, follow me on Instagram. Hey, go connect with me on LinkedIn. And because I'm a small business, my content scales across the platform. So usually I have my team use my blogs as the foundation. So I'm saying, take anything off my blog, make it a quote, send it out. Yeah. If it comes from my blog, it's trusted. I really don't need to review it because it makes sense. So using my blog as take it from the blog, create some quotes. Because all you're doing, it's like taking a brochure. I always talk to people, owners who are like 60 and 70. And I say, look, 1950 or 60 or whatever, you had your brochure, right? Yeah. So I'm like, how does that brochure map into a LinkedIn environment? You're like, oh, I didn't think about it. It's like the same information, but how does it display and navigate and interact with the environment? So it's like, it's no different. Take your brochure, figure out how does it play within an Instagram environment? How does it play within a Facebook environment? So you still take the same information, you just break it up. So now you may have the 5 slides of stuff on Instagram where you just had one brochure. But you still take the information, it's just how you display it and it works in that environment. So it's like if you had a radio ad, you wouldn't put the radio ad on TV because you're missing the visual components. So you say, okay, how do we take this radio ad and translate it to the TV? That's all. It's the same thing. How do you take your marketing material and translate it into an environment and it makes it easy to execute on too.
Yeah, it for sure does. Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, speaks of this often. If he has a 90-minute presentation, I think he said that'll be broken into 30 different pieces of content. One talk, because like you said, it's trusted. That's his talk. So those are his words, and he's comfortable with them being pulled apart. For this show here, like we're running already, 40 minutes into it or so. And you can't natively upload anything longer than 10 minutes in LinkedIn. So I will go and take pertinent chunks, and those become posts. So little 1 to 2 minute segments to get people interested. Then we put the link in the first comment so that people can be taken to YouTube or to the podcast to listen to it. And that's exactly how we do it, because there's just think this conversation alone. I think there are 15 different things we could pull out that are practical pieces of advice to help people on their marketing, their mindset, growing their business, the assets that they own. Do they make sense? To me, this conversation, if you haven't, before you came on, I wasn't feeling so well, Patrick. I was quite low. I am feeling woo, fantastic. You saw me cheer a couple times. I'm very passionate about this, and it's not talking. I want to know how we can help. What are those practical things? And you have given us so much information that people can just stop, and that's what they have to do too. You got to have a period of pause where you sit back and you ask yourself, what is the lifestyle I want? What is the business I want? What do I want to do with this asset? Where do I want to go? Who are those ideal customers? Then you get the processes to make it happen. But there's a great quote. I don't know who said it. The business is a reflection of the business owner. Full stop. So it always starts with us as the owner. And we sometimes get so busy in the day-to-day, we forget to stop and really ask those deep questions. Does Facebook make sense for my business? Or would I be better served on Instagram or maybe LinkedIn or Pinterest even? Pinterest gets quite forgotten about sometimes, but especially for women, Pinterest is huge. Is that where your audience is? Then maybe you need to pivot and go over there or add that to the suite. So anyway, I'm going to let that stop.
Well, I was just going to add that, what Patrick is saying and what Anita is saying, I've heard this before, but it stresses me out. When Patrick says it, I'm calm, because it sounds like there's a purpose for it. You mentioned Gary V, who would say, you got to be here, you got to be here, you got to be everywhere. And you hear this from a lot of folks, you got to be everywhere, you got to be on the social media. And it just stresses you out oh my gosh, you got to do this. Now, Patrick said something similar, thinking through where you want to be. It was kind of the same idea, but it sounded so much calmer because I'm yeah, because there's a purpose behind what you're saying and why you're saying it. So I like that. I like that approach.
Absolutely.
So I think folks listening today, you may well need a chief marketing officer and didn't know it until today. And so I do urge you to check out Indispensable Marketing, get those 5 questions you should be asking your own customers, and all the advice that Patrick has.
Yeah, actually, Patrick, I'm going to ask you to send us that so we can put it in the show notes.
Okay.
Right? The link to it. So because people are going to likely be asking about it, and I think it's fantastic. So if you could give us that, where else can people reach you besides Instagram, LinkedIn? Website?
I would say my website's indispensablemarketing.com, and I would say that's primarily where they can reach me is type in Indispensable Marketing into Google.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Like I said, I even physically feel revived. I was, kid you not, lying on the couch half an hour before, just I'm not feeling well. So I feel amazing. Matt, do you have any last words, comments, questions?
No, just some things. I took some notes here, some things I'm gonna try based on what Patrick says. I'll just say one of them because maybe this is an idea others could use. Is taking this idea of we talked about referrals and kind of building the relationships. I'd like to go to my folks who have been following me but who haven't been very active, and just say, look, I've met a lot of amazing people this year. Here are 6 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and here's what they specialize in. You know, maybe these folks could help you, and just present it to them. Say, you know, maybe you're done with my advice. I've taken you as far as I can, or whatever. But here are 6 people that I can totally qualify as great people that could help you if you're having these problems. So I'm going to do that with my own folks. Is just get this word out, spread the news about people that I think can help them, rather than, you know, follow the usual, you know, affiliate, JV, promo sorts of things that we're taught.
Yeah.
So I don't know, does that pass muster, Patrick? Is that?
Yeah, I think that's a great, anytime you're getting close to your customers and you're trying to solve their problems, somebody may reach back and say, you know what, now that you did this, I'm actually having this problem. And so then you become a buyer of services, and you're the first person they come to when they look to have a problem solved, which if you can do that, that's the holy grail, is to be on somebody's radar, whether for what you do or for what you don't do, because they're looking at you as a valuable resource. And when you call, they'll pick up the phone, and when you email, they will reply.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I think it's a great idea, Matt. This is the first I've heard of it, and I think it's fantastic because if nothing else, like Patrick just mentioned, just saying maybe this is the end for us, or I've gone as far, because it could be skill set, just be business, whatever. But to say, I'm not just leaving you here. These are other people that I think really can help. I know as a customer, I so appreciate that, because you've thought of me. You're not just thinking about yourself and saying, well, that's the end, goodbye, see you later, have a nice life. You're actually continuing to help. And I've got to just say this one last thing. You never know when that will translate into something else. And there are people who I've helped several years ago who are now coming back and saying, hey, Anita, remember when you did that for me a few years ago? Well, I'm now ready to do this. And that's always a surprise. And again, we don't talk about it, that it's like seeds that, you know, I planted garlic several years ago. I think 3 or 4 years ago, I had some garlic from 3 or 4 years ago pop up in my garden this summer. Like, what? Why did you wait so long? Like, what happened?
It sounds like a blog post in the making here. Garlic,
yeah.
Treating your customers like garlic. No, yeah.
Treating your customers like garlic.
Think of a better headline.
What do you think, Patrick? Do you think it's a great, catchy headline?
The garlic may turn people sour.
That's what I'm thinking. We'll work on it. But you know what I mean, that sometimes those seeds or relationships, if you will, take longer to germinate. That's all it is. For some, it's going to be immediate. They're hurting. You're the right solution, right time, and they're ready to go. And for other people, it takes longer. And I think, again, that is why it's so critical, A, to show up and give our best, and B, like you said, really get to know people, because you just never know how that's going to work going forward. So anyways, guys, thank you so much. I could go on longer, but we should wrap this up. Thank you so much, Patrick. This has been a wonderful conversation. And any final words before we wrap this up?
I would just say, just make sure, if you had to leave you with 2 things, make sure you know who and what makes an ideal client for your business, and understand what those particular clients value over the competitors for which you do. Yes. If you stick to those 2, you should be fine, no matter what route you take from a tactical standpoint. And
the best way to do that is what Matt and I do, is to ask.
Yep.
Just ask. Come out and just ask them, why did you choose us over our competitors? No better way to find out the real answer than to just ask.
It's true.
So anyway, thank you so much again, Patrick, for joining us. We'll put all your information in the show notes, including that post, because now I'm curious about the 5 questions as well. Yeah. And thank you very much for joining us for another episode of A Chat with Anita and Matt. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.
Take care.